All right, let's see if we're popping up. I don't see anybody, but hey, what are you going to do? There we are. Hello, everybody, and thank you for logging in. Today is Friday. It's 6:30. We're at the Merchant's House. Dr. Lee, what does that mean?
It's time for the show.
It's time for the show. I totally put you right on the spot there, didn't I?
Deer in the headlights.
Yep. Here we are. I'm with Dr. Lee. You want to be like them, but you can't. And we're with the lovely Matilda, and then my close friend and the president of the Parapsychology Foundation. We have the lovely Lisette Coly here. So, Lisette, how long have we known each other? We've known each other
about 20
years.
years,
Yeah, something like that. It's been a while, and Lisette is well, first off, we have to congratulate Lisette because she just became a grandma for the second time.
Exactly, a little girl. So
congratulations to Lisette
and
and
of
her
course,
family.
it's difficult when you're an ingenue to be a grandma.
I know, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe. You must have had Giorgio when you were like 17. So, all right. Oh, look, and here we are now. We popped up here. So, all right. Well, great. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about the Parapsychology Foundation, its history, where we're going to go from here, and we're going to focus a lot on Mrs. Garrett, who was Lisette's grandmother.
My maternal grandmother.
Yep. And who was a world famous psychic medium in her time. So, but before we get to that, we've got to talk about, we're here at the Merchant's House. We're in the front parlor of the Merchant's House. And we do have to discuss, and maybe if we see if we can't get my my camera moving. And but let's see. We'll do my Jedi. Okay, there's the rear parlor, and a little out of focus, but that's okay. And then we've got out into the hallways. We've got the piano, which is right behind Dr. Lee, who's hiding. And
You'd have to go backwards.
yeah, I mean, you can see how lovely this place is, and the Merchant's House.
The atmosphere is
the Merchant's House is embroiled in a huge battle with a company that is desperately trying to put a 8-story hotel right up against this wall. And now the Merchant's House is paid astronomical amounts of money to try and keep this from happening. One of the things that they did is they went to some engineers who did a survey, and they said, you know, in our professional opinion, if this hotel goes up next door, it's the Merchant's House is going to just collapse. It's going to be no more. And you know, at the very least, everything in here, all this molding, this plaster molding, which is you know, all handmade, all this stuff will just crumble and fall to the ground. So so if you have a moment, and you can go to the Merchant's House on their website, themerchantshouse.org. You're able to help out any way possible. That would be fantastic. Monetarily, you can come for a tour and donate to the house that way. I believe it's all tax deductible. And it really is a special place in New York City that needs to be saved. And it can only be saved by people helping out and wanting to save this place. So, I mean, everybody that's here is a volunteer. We don't get paid for anything that we're doing here. So everything, all our efforts go into just preserving this house and making this house or keeping this house as unique as it is. So please come by, log in, do what you can. In October, they do great business with the ghost stuff. They have ghost tours. I pop up every once in a while and do a ghost tour. So so please just support the Merchant's House. It's wonderful people. It's a wonderful place and needs to stick around. So that being said, how you doing, Lisette?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there. Happy to be back at the Merchant House.
Yes, and I'm happy to be sitting next to you. I really, Lisette really is one of my favorite people in the world. We don't get to hang out as much as
maybe that's
we
good.
like. What was the name of that place we used to hang out?
The Beach Cafe.
The Beach Cafe. Yeah.
Good vodka gimlets.
That's
but,
right.
The first time I was down here was 2001 because the foundation did a lecture down here about ghosts and apparitions.
With the Merchant's House?
Yes,
Yeah.
and
Which
in
is
fact,
on YouTube. That
yes,
lecture is
it's in
available on
YouTube. Just the Parapsychology Foundation has 150 odd item, not odd, but items, videos in our YouTube channel.
Wow.
And so one of them, but if you go to the Parapsychology Foundation Facebook page or my own, Lisette Coly, I reposted the lecture from the Merchant House. So it's up there now, so you can find the link.
Excellent. And if anybody has any questions as we're doing the show and talking, for any one of us, especially for Dr. Lee back there, because you can't see him. I know everybody wants to know what he looks like. Handsome.
Yeah.
But please, there are.
Yeah.
I know, right?
I don't get out.
There's a chat box here, so you can type any kind of questions if you can't hear us, or if you want to challenge us in any way. If you think what we're saying is BS, I love
Challenge
that.
them.
Yeah,
Not
no,
me.
you don't want to challenge
No,
the set.
that's-
So,
no, no.
so the Parapsychology Foundation, 71 years here in
Correct.
New York City. So
1951.
how did that start, and why did that start?
Well, my grandmother, Eileen J. Garrett, was a trance medium, a mental medium primarily. And she was brought over in the 30s, in 1932, to the States, following a very famous case that she was involved in, the crash of the R-101 dirigible, which was in the time somewhat like the Challenger thing.
And that happened in the US? or-
No, it was in London. She was
Okay,
working,
okay.
she was British and working as a sensitive over there. And she was doing a seance with Harry Price, which was the original.
The original guy,
the original
Borley
ghost-
Rectory,
Yeah, Ghostbuster, the ghost father of, ghost investigator. And they were trying to, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was a great spiritualist, the one who wrote,
Right.
what do you call it?
Sherlock Holmes.
Holmes. They were trying, with Garrett in trance, they were trying to contact Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And while they're doing that, somebody broke into the trance and was frantic and was giving all these details, turning out to be the pilot of this recently downed airship. And he was eliciting all this very technical information. And my grandmother was not technical, at least she couldn't even turn the TV channel or whatever. So in fact, she had about 12 or 13 sessions after that where the crew members came. There was a big court of inquiry, and they accused Garrett of being a spy or sleeping with the pilot, because how could she have this information? So that threw her onto the world stage, and it was the American Society for Psychical Research here in New York that brought her over in 31, 32. And she did lectures over here. She went down very early on to the Rhine lab with J.B. Rhine, and participated when he was first doing his telepathy experiments with the Zener
And
cards.
the Rhine lab, for people who don't know, was at that time was a part of Duke University.
Exactly.
It's
Had a
it's
little
still
house.
around, although they have separated. I think they're still on the campus.
No, they're not on the
Oh,
campus.
they're not on the
Well,
campus
sorry
anymore?
about that.
Geographically.
Geographically,
yes, but
they had a
officially not.
standalone.
Yeah, they're
But
not,
everybody
they're
thinks
not
of them.
affiliated with them, other than proximity.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he's really known as the father of scientific, with parapsychology.
Right.
Because, people get confused when I say psychical research. Psychical research, parapsychology is really utilizing scientific methodology to the problems of psychical research. So that's sort of a.
Never realized that.
Yeah, for sure. So then Garrett was junketing back and forth and between Europe and here as a guinea pig, not with various investigators, not to prove the validating her own gifts by any means. She was a very strange psychic in that she was ambivalent about the source of her gifts. And she really wanted science, because she had grown up, people thought were calling her, grew up in Ireland, the devil's spawn, and she was crazy and this, that, and the
So
other.
researchers were actually like inviting her to participate in studies, and she was jumping around.
Definitely. And she was fearless and had no,
Should have been at the Wind Bridge for sure.
yeah. Oh, definitely with Julie. Yeah, for sure. So she was very open and could care less. She just wanted science to tell her, how can I do what I can do? She knew that the information that she would bring through either in trance or psychically was valid. What she didn't know and wanted to know was what was the source. Yeah, so she worked as a practicing psychic, as a guinea pig with all these researchers. And in 1951, she had a longtime friend, Frances P. Bolton, who was a Republican congresswoman from Ohio, who was fabulously wealthy. And she was also very interested in psychic matters. So they decided to create the foundation and to be able to, with the grant program and scholarships, but really, since it's a multidisciplinary pursuit. You know, some people will think that if there's anything to, and again, we're not trying to prove to the public that there's definitely something there.
Investigate what is there.
Yeah, but definitely there's a question, and
Yeah,
we have to, and we've got to get answers.
Yeah.
So a lot of
Even if it
people.
ends up being whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
it could be a
definitely. A lot of
psychological
people
thing,
think
whatever,
that
yeah.
because we're Parapsychology Foundation and that my grandmother was a medium, that I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you, oh, yeah, oh,
Yeah.
the whole thing is 100% certitude.
Yeah.
And by no means, because we find that a rabid skeptic is just as dangerous as a true believer who
Yeah,
believes
absolutely. It's the
everything,
same thing, just
right?
opposite sides
You
of it,
have to
yeah.
have
Yeah, it's
critical
going far
thinking.
left or
Yeah.
far right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
either way, it's
Yeah.
gonna be,
Definitely.
trouble.
And yeah, I always say you have to, and I know you do, you have to eliminate all the normal explanations
Mhm.
before you make the jump to the paranormal.
Right.
So in 51, they started this foundation, which actually was envisioned to be a clearinghouse for information about this very complex and very mysterious field. But through our international conferences, and publications and lectures and the maintenance of our Eileen Garrett library.
Mhm.
So that's basically a little bit of something for everybody sort of deal.
Or was there any one like particular experiment that she particularly liked in terms of like what they investigated, like one of them that you participated in?
Well,
Or
from a
the
science
results
point of view, she worked with Paharich, was Andrea Paharich with the Faraday cage. And
Okay.
he was a scientist, would know, you know, the lead line business, and to see whether or not telepathy experiments or whatever
Could work within a Faraday cage
within
kind
the
of thing?
lead. Yeah, so
Got
I found that particularly interesting.
And what were the results of that? Was
That
Did
it
it seem
could
like it
augment,
interfered?
it seemed to be that it would augment the psychic,
Signal, whatever, yeah.
the signals,
Oh.
yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. So there was that component. There was a certain amount of haunting investigations that she would go on, being
Oh, really?
utilized as a medium, yeah, for
was she
sure.
ever, did she ever get involved with Hans Holzer?
Hans Holzer, she gave him his start and told him that he would, that he would write books, and he said, "Oh no, I'm not going to write
Mhm.
books." And of course, he wrote, I don't know how many.
110
Yeah,
or 111
yeah.
books.
In fact, I threw a thing with his daughter,
Alexandra.
Alexandra, for the Travel Channel.
Mhm.
One of her cases one of the first cases he ever went with is the Rockland County Ghost.
Mhm.
And there was that show she just did with the Holzer files.
Holzer files, yeah.
So they took
They shot here.
Alexandra, yeah,
Yeah.
and they also took us up there to do the
Yeah,
Rockland
they
County
faked some
Ghost
evidence
thing.
here.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
ostensibly.
So there was
No, they did.
there was the haunting stuff. Yeah, you name it. There was the drug work, because she was very involved with how the altered states, how that whatever she
Augment
ingested
that.
would change that.
Mm.
So
Let's
if you
see.
do, what, off the top of your head, like what's the best combination of like Faraday cage plus drugs plus? you know,
Yeah,
like-
take the drugs in
See
the
where we
cage,
go with
in
this.
the cage, you'll be fine. Yeah, that's basically, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah, we took a lot of flack in the early days. I mean, because as I grew up, and I used to be able to say what the compound is, you know, she worked with Abram Hoffer, and of course, Aldous Huxley was a very good friend of hers. And I did all my term papers in college about Aldous Huxley, because knowing him growing up or whatever. And funny story about that is I understand why he wrote Islas and Geza, because he had a glass eye. And as a kid, you know, your parents tell you don't stare at an infirmity.
Mhm.
He was a sweetheart, very tall guy. All I did was stare at his eye. Yeah, so, but he was a
How could
trustee.
you not stare at
Yeah.
that sweet glass
Yeah,
eye,
for
boy, you know?
sure, for sure. But Garrett was, apart from her psychic persona, she was very literary. She wrote several books outside of parapsychology. She ran with a lot of creative types, which
Mhm.
I think there is a combination or a coordination of between psychic functioning and that creative eureka moment.
100%.
To have the,
Definitely.
experiments where they
And,
deliberately choose, you know, more artistic people or whatever, and see that they have different.
Definitely,
degrees of being
definitely.
able to-
So she was an interesting person. I've had many people tell me that many roads turned to Garrett, or she had her hand in a lot of pots.
Mhm.
I mean, as when I first started working at the foundation, let me see, I guess I would have been about 68, 69 when I started college. Well, I did a semester of that, and I thought, oh, this is, I want to go over to the Parapsychology Foundation and where all the good stuff is happening. Until I got to Parapsychology Foundation and they made me the grunt, you know, and I had an old PBX
books.
board, you know, like, you
Oh,
know, whatever.
PBX board.
Yes,
Okay.
What is that?
and the mimeograph machine,
Yep.
but come home purple,
You can smell it,
whatever.
What's
Yes.
the PBX?
Oh, PBX board, it's,
like
it's
operators with a.
with, you put
Yeah, but why
the, you
did
put the,
you-
cord-
Right.
What were you?
because it
doing
was a
with
big office. So if a
that?
call
Really?
would
So
come.
people wanted to call like within the building and you had to like,
No, calls coming in, would call the foundation, and if you wanted to speak to Mrs. Garrett,
Oh,
and
got it.
I would answer Parapsychology Foundation, and then you'd have to plug into the right.
Ah,
Those old
This, that,
operators
the
you see in
other.
the old movies. right?
yeah,
Just
yeah,
a
but I never
moment.
pictured that being like, so secretaries and offices and stuff would do the same thing, like, oh, you want to talk?
No,
to
but you'd have
so-and-so?
one, you'd have the receptionist, who'd have the
Like the
PBX
operator.
board, yeah.
The call would come in.
At the office itself.
Yeah. At
Oh,
the
cool.
office,
I
yeah.
always pictured it being like at the phone, station
Yeah.
or whatever. you know?
Well, I think there was somebody, if you ever saw the old laugh-in thing, you know, like with Lily
Lily
Tomlin,
Tomlin,
with,
yeah.
she was plugging into the board.
Huh.
But why am I telling you that? Oh, yeah, because the type of people that she would be running with is, one day Salvadore Dali comes in, right? And I had a little stool opposite my little reception desk, and he wanted to see Garrett because he used to see her in the south of France, because the foundation at the time had a European headquarters in the south of France in Saint-Paul-de-Vence, because if you're going to have a European headquarters,
Go down there. Yeah.
what the heck? So he bops in and he says, wants to talk to Garrett. And I ran into the office and I said, Salvadore Dali, he's out there, he wants to talk to you. And she said, oh, get rid of him, darling, he's such a bore. So I had to go back. You try getting rid of Salvadore Dali. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Dali, you know. And then he plunks himself down on the stool, and all I'm doing is at those mustaches really came to such a point, you know. So she would throw me into all sorts of things like that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's not too psychically minded, but anyway. part of my thing.
Did she ever? I know, some mediums that we were talking about, my friend, your friend, Richard Scholler,
Right.
and he has now learned how to turn it on and off,
Oh, yeah.
where he can, not be bothered by spirit.
Yes.
Did Garrett, did she ever, like, I don't want to say do a reading on you, but were you ever around her as she was
Well, first of
receiving
all,
information, or did she share that with you, or did she strictly keep like family and then the business?
yeah, she used to, she learned to be what she called a 9 to 5 medium. So
Mhm.
she could learn to turn it off. Although I have seen her be in an elevator when it was such a strong something that she warned somebody, but basically 9 to 5, she could turn it off. And I didn't know, in fact, I learned about Garrett probably around the same time I learned about the birds and the bees. Because, all kids will ask, Mama, is there such a thing as ghosts? Like my kids, Georgie
Mhm.
asked me. And then I'm tap dancing. He's living above the Parapsychology Foundation. And what am I supposed, and I said, well, Georgie, we're not sure. We have to do something, blah, 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 blah. But
What are the birds and the bees?
we'll talk later.
Okay.
So she kept that very much apart from, not that she was ashamed of all that, but there was so much more to her than just her psychic functioning. And she also felt, I laughed because she would tell people, like, she was good friends with Bill Wilson, the what do you call it, the AA, the Alcoholics Anonymous guy. And he liked to go to mediums, and she would tell him, and I've heard her tell other people and read some of the letters, and she would say, listen, why are you wasting your money going to, just ad nauseum to tons of mediums? Why don't you just center yourself quietly and listen to your own inner voices or whatever? So she had a rule that she tried to pretty much only sit with you for a max of 3 times, because she didn't want you to become
Not too
a
fond,
junkie,
yeah.
a psychic
Good
junkie.
for her. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot
Yeah.
of people would
She
do
would
that
bring
now. In fact,
forth-
they would try and milk you for as much as
Well,
they
yeah, that's
possibly
the
can.
whole, that's, what people have a
No.
lot of suspicions about mediums.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they
no,
should,
Yeah.
They should. There are a lot of frauds out there, but when it
Mhm.
works, it really works well. But you really should have a healthy respect and not get drawn into this. Because with my work at Parapsychology Foundation, I've seen so many people, both because we serve two constituents. We serve academia, right? The researchers, scholars, whatever, and also the public at large. And I've seen people in both camps come to the subject matter and be very grounded, but then somehow get totally turned around and lost in the sauce. Because an interest in this field, you have to have, some sort of strength of character to
Yeah.
keep a perspective,
Yeah.
because you can get really lost.
Yeah,
in
it's
that.
interesting you bring that up too, because a lot of times for mediums or
Mhm,
whatever,
mhm.
people in parapsychology in general, like they'll say like, oh, they demonstrated something to some scientists and they're totally
Yeah.
convinced. And like, that doesn't mean anything, right? Scientists aren't,
Yeah,
like, in
it's
fact,
not
the
the
best
holy
person to
grail.
test it with is actually like a magician, right? They're the experts at like how to trick people and like.
Exactly.
Well,
Scientists
Harry
don't know.
Houdini was very, very,
Oh, right.
like one of his goals
Yeah.
was to sort of.
Yeah.
you know,
Gotcha.
Yeah,
With
yeah.
Marjorie and.
Well, yeah, and there's some talk that he was actually murdered by a medium, or that mediums
really?
were behind his
Oh.
murder because they wanted to.
Shut him up.
Yeah, I mean, of
That's
course,
interesting.
it's just a
A
rumor.
bunch of
We don't
mediums put a
know,
hit
but-
out on
Yeah,
Harry Houdini.
really,
Yeah.
really.
They were
Yeah.
Stranger Things, right?
Mhm.
That's a movie right there.
For sure.
Bunch of mediums getting together. I guess a medium wouldn't have to get together,
Yeah,
but they,
right.
they would,
Just kind of-
Well, the meeting of the minds.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
for
But
sure.
Lisette, do you think that she ever was satisfied with an explanation about where
No.
her gift came from? So she never, ever got that sort
No.
of
In
scientific
fact,
answer.
Well, it's funny because she took a lot of flack because everybody wanted her to come one way or the
Yeah.
other, and
Yeah,
she
both sides wanted to
refused.
become-
In fact, there's a famous quote that I share all the time, that she said that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I believe in the paranormal. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I don't. And on Sunday, I don't give a damn. And that is pretty much where I sit, because a lot of things, I try as an administrator of
Yeah.
the organization, a lot of things cross my desk that really sway me, and yet there's so much garbage out there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So I feel badly, and that's why the foundation's efforts in trying to be a clearinghouse for quality information, because Garrett and my mother, I think, spent all their time explaining what parapsychology is.
Mhm.
I spend all my time explaining what it's not,
Right.
because everybody knows our buzzwords. You can't turn
Yeah.
on a sitcom that they're
Mhm.
talking remote viewing and ESP and blah, blah, blah. They still think, thanks to our friends in the media, that tract houses fall into pits like
Mhm.
Spielberg and Poltergeist. Right?
Right.
You find that, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
So-
and also with parapsychology is the science of just three things, with subcategories under each, but it's PK or mind matter interaction, ESP, so there's lots of subcategories under that,
clairvoyance,
and
telepathy.
survivalism, and that's the ghost stuff. That's the sexy part of it, and that's why all the ghost stuff's on TV. But it's amazing that there is even a Parapsychology Foundation in New York City, that there is a place. I mean, it's frustrating probably for you, and I know it is for me, that people that have questions,
They don't know we exist.
they don't know you guys exist, and that there is a place to go for the answers, rather than turning on TV and watching a ghost show, because you're not going to get any answers.
No.
I mean,
And they're
I
all-
shouldn't say that, but for the most part, you're not, because it's not that sexy and it's not going to make the air. So it's amazing for people like me and us, that if we want to go read about the beginnings of J.B. Ryan and what his results were,
Mhm.
and hear about a guy who's being tested at Duke University and gets 237 cards right in a row,
Yeah.
from a distance, sometimes from a library. He got 237 right in a row. And that night, his girlfriend broke up with him when they tried to do it the next day, and he
Right.
couldn't do it. So it doesn't count.
Yeah.
But he got 237 right in a row, I mean, he was in the zone,
Yeah. there's-
literally.
yeah,
It's
so-
frustrating. And then you run into the problem of the repeatable experiment.
Yeah.
But then
Exactly,
again,
that's what
can
I
you
was
catch lightning? I mean, you can't,
Yeah, and actually that's something we talked about in the previous show, which is really intriguing. Lightning's been around since the beginning of humanity and the earth and everything, and yet it's only recently that, including ball lightning. So ball lightning is actually, it's been kind of something vaguely understood, and some people actually thought it was fake, because it's like occasionally people say, oh, I saw this thing fly around, but it's like, okay, nobody ever sees it. So, but if it has been around, it's been around since the beginning of the Earth, essentially. And yet it's only like maybe 5 years, 10 years ago when scientists first were able to actually record ball lightning with a camera, evaluate its, the spectrum of light coming out of it. And that's really the first concrete evidence that proved scientifically, like, this thing, wow, this actually exists. And yet it's been around forever, but it's so hard to see and so rare, and so few people see it.
Show
Yeah,
me.
so it's just a
Where's
good
the meat?
example. Yeah, it's a good example. You can have something that's real and rare, and just, people think it's bullcrap, even though it's been around forever, So.
But then you have those people too, that you can show them that data and show them, and they're still gonna say.
So, yeah, that's yes and no. Yeah, exactly. If you do the experiments right, like you said, repeatability. That's the whole, that's the answer to the whole thing. If you can get Joe Schmo off the street and have them
But
repeat it, then,
but can you capture psychic functioning in a lab?
yeah. And
Where
if
is
you
the
can't,
human
then
part of it?
unfortunately, basically that means that it can't be
Not really.
done by science, and it's,
I mean, the Gansfeld, which is.
that's the
is
most proven,
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
What
so
is that? What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, explain the Gansfeld.
The Gansfeld is when you close off all the senses,
Yeah,
they put you in
earphones, you
ping
have-
pong balls
yeah.
on your eyes, they have
And that's
white
the pieces of
noise,
light.
just, in your ears, and you're in the dark or whatever.
Try something like that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
the Gansfeld, yeah. that'd be
So
cool.
actually,
Yeah.
that's a really good example, because that's actually one of the experiments in parapsychology that has gone through a huge
successful.
evolution, right?
Yes,
But
exactly.
successful because of the evolution, right?
Mhm.
So they have over time, like, critics keep looking at it and say, oh, but maybe this is causing these results, maybe this, and they keep changing it. And now it's gotten to the point where it's fully automated. It's like all
Well, they-
computerized, randomized, you sit in a booth, so that allows it to be replicated a lot more easily, because you have this like setup that you can just kind of hand off to somebody and be like, hey, you can
Yeah.
take anybody off the street,
Exactly.
put them into this booth,
exactly.
in this situation.
And they've done so many
and it'll work.
meta-analyses
Yeah.
of all the different
And
things.
it's
in the
exactly,
aggregate,
that's
so
probably
it's-
where the most concrete, scientifically evidence is in terms of
But
these
that
effects.
still leaves, that doesn't explain how that happens.
No, exactly. And
And
that's the
what
other
does
problem.
that mean for us?
Yeah.
And it sort of eliminates the human condition sort of deal, which
Yeah.
Garrett herself, I think if she was still alive, and I'm with age now, I'm getting impatient, because you're a good soldier and you're with all this science, but like, do I care how it works? Me personally, and
Yeah.
I'm not speaking for the Parapsychology Foundation per se, but I would like to know what it means for us as human beings.
Mhm.
How can we utilize it? I mean, I think, and it also, not that I want to be a psychic detective per se, and that kind of utilization,
Yeah,
but I think it's part of the human
Apply it to
condition.
the real world.
Yeah, and we need help, right now,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah,
For
that's
sure.
part of why I'm interested in this research, because it's like,
Well, I
the
think
Earth
it's
is
the
going down
wild,
a very,
No, it's the
potentially
wild
negative
card.
lane. Yeah, exactly.
Lawrence Lashan used to say that this psychic force or whatever truly is the wild card that might just
Right.
save us in the end.
Oh, you know what we were talking about the other day? I don't need to get off this tangent and go on down another one.
Can you
but-
shy get off my soapbox?
No.
Get the hook, get the hook, get
Yeah.
that.
You have a global consciousness egg,
Yes,
right?
one of the first, yeah. with
We
Roger
were
Nelson.
talking, about that.
Does it bits and bites? I don't know.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
clicks around in there. Yeah, for sure. The only one in New York City.
Wow,
Oh,
that's so cool. I saw it.
Yeah, well,
Does it actually?
he was
like,
one of our
does it have a
grantees.
blinky light or
Yeah.
something?
No, it's just a regular, another, what do you call them? Yeah, it's another computer that
Yeah.
just sits there. and
Oh, it's
it
not actually
elicits-
like.
It's not like a little, no.
No. No. But yeah, it started with Roger
I thought they were
Nelson.
like that, too, so you know.
Well, remember I said about our grant program, so that they were an early grantee of that. We
Right.
supported
Oh, cool.
that.
Yeah, Roger Nelson and
Roger Nelson and
Princeton.
Brian, and now Brian Williams of the Psychical Research Foundation is doing a lot of the recording and
Uh-huh.
trying to put it together. If he was doing the moon eclipse, or if there's a terrible
Yeah, yeah,
tragedy or
yeah.
something, is this
Or
collective.
something good, like the World
Yes,
Cup and New
yes,
Year's Eve.
exactly. But something that elicits an emotional response, either
Mhm.
negative, and does that interfere with all these eggs around the world?
Yeah, we were talking, I think it was the last show, we were talking about how on 9/11,
Mm,
it pitched downward.
mm.
And when it usually goes up, if a lot of people are
And it
focused on the
pitched,
same
it
thing.
pitched before it happened. It
It's-
started its
As
plunging.
the guys were going to the airport.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
9/11 was a well, 9/11 was 9/11, but I mean, I know at the foundation that day, I got a call around, I guess, 2:30, 3 o'clock. And somebody said, can a soul be trapped in an airplane? And I said, oh, tell me somebody, a family member on the plane. And he said, yes. And my knee-jerk response, because they're calling Parapsychology Foundation, and my knee-jerk response was to tell them, oh, yes, we all go on, everything, but and then I stopped myself because I thought, no, listen, it's like the doctors taking the oath, first do no harm, because if they perceive the foundation as an authority, and I say, oh, yes, am I then giving this person the idea that they're going to go around to every bogus psychic they can find? So as much as I wanted to help, I told them what I tell most people when they're in extremis, to start to journal, to write things down, and try and find patterns. And of course, figure out all your normal explanation. Maybe your boiler is turning on and clanking. It's not, or close the window or whatever. But I think that's helpful for anybody who's experiencing something that they don't understand.
Exactly. It can be helpful psychologically, regardless, it just sort of thinking to yourself, writing things down. It's just, it's
Do
gonna help
you have a lot of people ask you these type of questions in your field? 'Cause
I have a lot of people ask me what my personal beliefs are
That's hard.
about
It's
life
hard,
after
yeah.
death. And, I mean, we don't have data, right? Or we don't have substantive data. But I will say, I know many people who feel a presence sometimes. And
Especially
I
at the
think
moment
if
of
it's
death of somebody,
meaningful,
they see
Yeah.
family members, and
Yeah.
they're talking to,
and I'm just beginning to do some research into something that's called shared death experiences, which is
Yeah.
where a dying person, well, you know about this, right?
Yeah,
And a
it's
living
really
person have the
important.
same vision or like,
Mhm.
so, I mean, there's just, it's like,
Well,
there-
yeah, explain it to the viewers, because.
well, I don't really, maybe you should explain it because
No.
I don't really know that much about it yet. I
Well,
just
Yeah,
know that.
the interesting part about
happens.
it, like everybody's heard of near-death experiences. That's
Yeah.
common, but one thing that scientists say about that is like, obviously the person's
The
dying,
dying
the brain's
brain,
frying, so
less
obviously who
oxygen.
knows what the heck's going on there, bright lights, whatever. But the shared death experience eliminates that variable because it's
Mhm.
actually experienced by somebody that's standing next to the
Yeah.
person that's passing away, and it usually happens only when they're like physically contacting them as they die.
Mhm.
And what happens is during that contact, as the person passes away, they actually experience the same thing, like shooting up through light with the person, seeing like, previous people that passed away, etc. Basically experiencing the same thing that people say they experience with near-death experiences. But this person's totally healthy, right? They're not the one dying, and yet
Yeah.
they experience this whole thing, and then they come back down to earth.
I
So
wonder
that
if it's
eliminates-
telepathy. Do you think it might be telepathy at the moment of death
Again,
that you're plugging
yeah,
into?
who
I mean,
knows the
you
mechanism
see,
of
I
that.
know,
But
yeah.
it's fascinating because it eliminates the ill brain part
Yeah,
of the
that-
theory.
Is it somebody that's connected with that person, or is it a
Not
relative?
necessarily, no. So it happens a lot of times with relatives because
'Cause
they're
they're
obviously
there,
more
yeah.
likely, but it's also happens sometimes with people that, they said like, I didn't give a crap about this person. Like I was just,
Yeah.
happened to be there and like,
Yeah.
and
And
they
caught
had the
the-
same experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
kind of, there's like this warping of the room
Interesting.
reportedly, and then like they shoot up, and a lot of times they're with the other person. And sometimes they even want to like go into the light with them, but the other person will be like, no,
Not
stop.
your- not
And they
your
shoot them
turn.
back. Yeah.
Shoot back.
Yeah.
So it's really intriguing because these are normal, healthy people, and they're not dying.
Well, that's
they're not,
like that book by Aben Alexander.
Yes,
with,
yes.
Yeah, all that, that it
Yes.
was
15
clinically
minutes
dead
ago
or
or
whatever,
something like
and
that.
Yeah,
came back and
yeah.
brain dead and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're interested in thanatology.
Yeah, I'm a thanatologist.
Well, there you go, because we did a conference on parapsychology and thanatology,
Oh,
which is
you
still in
did?
print, www.parapsychology.org. No, seriously, or
Wow.
cymark.com
Oh, I
is
would
my
love
electronic, so I'll
to.
send you a copy.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. Another thing which actually, I need to look more into this too, Dr. Lee, because it is provable, is what's called grief dreams, where people have a dream and wake up and say, Uncle Jack died. And the other person says, oh no, he's still alive. And then they
That's
later
like-
get word that he's died.
Yeah.
That's a crisis episode.
right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
quite common, actually.
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
literature or whatever.
Yeah.
So
that's
the
fine,
short,
that
the
happens
short
sometimes.
answer is I think I have a personal opinion
Mhm.
that we're not supposed to know. So we'll never know. Like, we're never going to absolutely know, you know, because I think when you have surety about stuff like that, when you have surety about life after death, then you're not going to live your life the same way you would. Like, if I knew, like, you know, oh, like, you know, well, I'll have more time with these people, I'll be reincarnated with them in another life, or we just would make different choices, different decisions. So yeah, I think we get these little tantalizing hints, enough to keep us interested, enough to keep us
He was
involved.
moving forward and
Yeah, and still have that space for belief in things that we can't explain, I think is really important. I think life would, to me, seem very dull if we didn't allow that possibility, or we didn't, like, you know, my parents were both what I would call them rationalists. Like, they didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe in ESP, they didn't believe in anything like that. And it always kind of struck me as like, well, there's just so much that you're cutting off, like so many possibilities you're not allowing yourself to.
I used to think the same way, you know, and actually, you know, I was like, my mom believed that stuff, and I'd be like, that's stupid.
So what changed? So what changed?
Yeah, I was
for
gonna
you?
go, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
changed you?
Me, I
changed
got
for me?
stuck, I was born into it, but what about you?
So yeah, I've never had a personal experience or anything, but it's just realizing, like, you know, I'm saying this stuff, but why am I saying that that's all bullshit? Like, I haven't looked into it. Have I looked into, you know, research that other people have done to look into it? No. Okay, so I started looking into it,
Curiosity.
into the research, yeah, and then I was like,
Curiosity.
whoa, there's actually some really intriguing research out there, and even if they haven't proven something, like, there's enough data to suggest, like, hey, maybe it's enough to make me
It's
spend my
tantalizing.
Yeah.
energy on looking into it more. Yeah, because it's intriguing, and it's like you said, it's fascinating. It makes life more interesting, and I kind of like it too, because even if it's an unanswerable question, it's a fun journey. Like, it's such a fascinating thing to investigate
Yeah,
that it's like, that's fun, you know, like solving problems, figuring out how can we actually prove
Well, you
this
got
if
a
it is
big problem to
provable.
solve, baby.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
go for it.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
how did
If
you-
someone,
well, how
if
did you
someone's
get
gonna
into
start it, solve it, it'll be
Yeah.
Dr. Lee.
Or, I mean, honestly, like we were talking about before the show, like us together, you know, we have to do these experiments as groups, bring people together from different fields, and you know, we want to do like the monthly thing here. We're going to talk about it more,
Yeah.
but, you know, we'll keep everybody up to date on that. But yeah,
What got you involved in all this? I didn't ask you that.
I was.
Or I asked you over the vodka gimlet and I don't know. the
Yeah,
answer.
wait a minute. My grandmother moved in with my parents before I was born. So grandma was always there, you know, and I actually found it strange that grandmother didn't live with all my friends. You know, grandma was
Don't
always
tell my
there.
son George. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
But grandma always told me about, she was Irish, from Ireland, Donegal. And her sister moved to Scotland and she moved to America, but she would always tell me about Scotland and about the Loch Ness Monster. I was 5, 6 years old, and it was just blowing
Well,
my
they're big
mind.
with the second site in Scotland is very big.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're
They're
over
very
there,
fey.
they're
very
way
fey,
into
yeah.
that. But it was just blowing my mind that there might be a dinosaur swimming in a lake somewhere. No, I mean,
Or a
you're 5 or
magical
6 years old.
creature.
Really?
And so
Yeah.
I started reading every book you could find on the Loch Ness Monster. I became that guy. And if somebody was on a vacation,
That 8-year-old child.
Nessie, it was it. It was it for me. And then like in the library books, it was always in the ghost section. And so I would start to read about ghosts.
Bled over.
It bled over, and then when I
gateway animal, gateway dinosaur.
yeah a gateway dinosaur.
That's funny.
So yeah, really for sure. But and then, you know, as I got a little bit older and I got into sports and athletics in school and you know, girls and getting into college, and when I came to New York, I came for theater and I started doing commercials.
Mhm.
Hey, so I loved Civil War buff and Civil War history, and so I would go to visit all the battlefields on the East Coast.
Oh, wow. I've
And,
always wanted to go
you know,
to Gettysburg.
Oh,
See,
it's the
yeah.
best place
Yeah,
ever.
no, there's a lot going on. No, there's a lot
Yeah.
going on over there. I mean, everything, yeah.
But
Literally and psychically.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely,
I was in
definitely.
Gettysburg when I, you know, took 3 or 4 days and went down to Gettysburg, and I went out to dinner, and I was staying at the Farnsworth House, which is supposed to be the most
One-
haunted place
public.
Pardon me?
No, it is.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the most haunted place. It's an original house, survived through the battle. In fact, they had a sniper. There was a sniper's nest in the attic. And the little tiny attic window on the side of the house, they still have all the bullet holes around it. They never
Oh,
repaired
wow.
anything, so hundreds
Yeah.
of bullet holes. But I was staying there, and I was staying in the Sarah Black room, which was supposedly the most haunted room in the Farnsworth house. So the most haunted room in the most haunted building in the most haunted town in America, supposedly. So it was like a trifecta of ghost stuff. And I went out to a restaurant, and when I came back, there was a paranormal group doing an investigation at the Farnsworth house, and they wanted in my room. And I was like, yeah, sure. And they were the nicest people. They were the coolest people. There was a dentist, there was a reverend, other people, professionals. And they were so cool. And it really just set my ghost stuff off again. And I started reading, and there was more books, came across Loyd Auerbach's books, and which, if guys, if you want to know about parapsychology, buy Loyd Auerbach's books. He writes so well, and it's such an easy read, and it's fun, and he's a fantastic author, and a great guy, great friend. But it set me off, and I started looking for people who were doing investigations, and bumped into some people and started doing investigations, and then the ghost shows came out about 2 years later, and then everybody in New York was calling us, trying to get us to do investigations. But that, it leads you down these weird paths, and you meet some people that are cool. They're only going to be in your life for a little while, and then you meet people that you've known for decades, and you meet people that you're looking forward to know for decades, and we ended up here. So and having this show, it's strange how one little thing, a little Irish lady talking about the Loch Ness monster, can lead to a Zoom call in a haunted townhouse here in New York City. It's amazing.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting. People are always saying, like, I want to have an experience. I'm like, you're already having them. If you've ever had deja vu, you're having an experience where you're connecting with another level, and write them down, write your dreams down, like, things like that. You might get messages in dreams, like,
well, that's
just
true.
bring your attention to what's happening. Like, the phone's ringing. Oh, I bet it's my sister, and it's your sister. Things like that. It's true. It's people.
But you can't try too hard to have these experiences.
No.
Garrett would say, and the literature, it's not only Garrett, would underscore that these eureka moments of pure psychic functioning happens in a period of high carelessness when you least expect it. It's sort of like falling in love. If you're looking for Mr. You might have with Mr. Goodbar, but otherwise, whatever. So in this, spontaneous sort of thing.
And that's when, most people report paranormal phenomena as they're going about their normal day. And so, when I'm talking with investigators, especially investigators that are starting out, they'll say, oh, we've got a FLIR camera, or we've got these infrared goggles, and we're going to be able to see into this, and the visible light spectrum. We're going to look into different light spectrums. And I go, well, the lady that had the experience that called you in, was she wearing infrared goggles? Did she see something through a FLIR camera? Was she doing it at night with all the lights off? No, she was, or he was in the kitchen going about their daily thing. And that's when they saw the apparition. So do it then.
Loyd has told me that several times in the early days he would carry something, because when the first Ghostbusters came out, if he didn't have something in his hand, it wasn't dialing anything, just to look the part into, because people want the stuff.
Well, when I go, if I'm doing a private home investigation, people are like, where's all the stuff? Where's the DVR? When I started out, and I've said this a number of times on the show, you can always tell an investigator how long they've been doing it by how much equipment they bring. When I started out, my first investigation, I rented a van to carry all my stuff. When the first time I was here, we had probably 16, 17 cameras. I had to have 5,000 feet of cable, 2 DVRs stacked up on top of each other, laptop, computer, everything, and nothing ever happened.
Well, they're playing a trick on you.
So now like Harry Price had a notebook and a piece of paper.
That's exactly.
I mean,
yes. Now things evolve, and
but also, like the only way you can say nothing ever happens is if you legit say that like every show out there is 100% bullcrap, which it might be, but like you literally have to say that, because otherwise, like, there's some intriguing stuff on some of those shows.
Sure.
Which,
Well,
if you're
yeah.
not saying calling the people outright liars, like it
Yeah,
was
but it's
recorded.
all,
was
it's not
interesting.
all or nothing, people
Exactly,
think with psychic
exactly,
functioning, they
exactly.
think that if you're a psychic or micro,
Then
100%,
exactly.
and it's like a faucet. And
Exactly.
if you're psychic, you're gonna,
Yeah.
no,
All
no,
it's
no,
doing
no,
is
even,
increasing the probability that you're gonna
no,
get something
there's a
legit
lot
that
of
comes through.
baloney that goes through and extraneous
Exactly.
information that's nothing but
Exactly.
there's this very tantalizing eureka moments where
Mhm.
information comes through that like, where'd that come from? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I mean,
So,
that's like our friend Richard.
yeah,
When I met him, he really changed my whole perspective on mediums and mediumship.
he's an excellent psychic. He's an
Yeah,
excellent-
and a cool guy, just a great guy to have around and be friends with. But, like even Richard says, I go, Richard, how? He goes, I don't know how. And I go, so when you're seeing somebody, how do you know you're not like, he did a mini reading on me once because we were having a debate on if he's actually seeing them with his eyes or is he seeing them with, I hate
Or
this
is he
word, his
hearing?
mind's eye, but
I know.
is he
or the
perceiving
third
them?
eye, I mean,
and he said, and we got into this debate, and he said, all right, Dan, your grandmother, I'm getting a grandmother vibe, and he described my grandmother to a T, and her attitude, and not the grandmother that lived with us, but my father's mom, and her personality, he had it down to a T, and it was creepy, and I said, but are you seeing her? Are you seeing her? Or because I have my grandmother's DNA in me. I'm part of my grandmother. My grandmother's part of me. Are you getting that from me? Are you
Well,
picking
that's
that
what
up?
Garrett was saying.
Yeah,
Is
and
it
he would say,
telepathy? Is she
what's the
reading the
difference?
sitters?
Yeah.
That's where the information's
Right.
coming from?
Yeah.
Is it, are we all on a damp cloud?
Mhm.
The survival hypothesis, is that part of it? I mean, it's, yeah.
When Garrett would do readings, did she need any kind of special setup?
No.
Did she, or could she
No,
just sit
people would
down
say-
and?
No,
Yeah.
I mean, no big induction thing or
All
whatever.
right,
I asked her once about crystal balls. She said, oh, it's you can focus on anything. It's just
Mhm.
just to
Yeah, just
clear
so-
your mind, it's scrying or whatever, a bowl of water or whatever.
Right,
So
right.
no, there was no great big,
All right.
you know.
And I mean, you wanted to talk about,
Oh, I wanted to
Yeah.
ask about
What?
ectoplasm.
Oh,
Because there was a New York Times article about the
Okay,
foundation and
right.
the fact that the building that the foundation's library is housed in is potentially being
Being
sold.
sold.
And in the article, there was a photo of Eileen Garrett with an ectoplasm.
Right.
So
right. Da, 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 da. Cheesecloth.
where's the data? Where is the data on ectoplasm? Because everything I've read suggests that it's a prop.
Yeah,
Mhm.
regurgitated cheesecloth or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
I don't know, again, I mean, there's a physical medium now, what's his
Kai.
name? Kai.
Yeah.
I've been to one of his
yeah,
sittings.
did you go with,
I was with Rosemary Pilkington and Robert and Shannon Taggart.
and Bob Ginsburg? Did you go with Bob Ginsburg? from the
No, that was,
Parapsychology
no,
Foundation?
I know Bob, but I
He's such a
didn't go.
great
He's
guy.
a sweetheart, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Ectoplasm, if you talk to, we'll go to my YouTube channel for a second, because
Okay.
because Walter Myers, whoever is very interested, he worked with the Glenn Hamilton collection in Manitoba,
Mhm.
and they were doing a lot of the ectoplasm
Mhm.
research. So
I-
it can be faked very easily. Garrett was not known as a physical medium.
So what does that term mean, physical medium? Like generating physical, like
Yeah.
ectoplasm
Yeah.
kind of
Yes,
stuff? or-
ectoplasm stuff or
Okay.
moving things, psychokinetic
Got it.
things, like with the what do you call it? Trumpet
Trumpets and
seances
the horns.
or
and-
whatever.
and-
So if you go to a physical medium, they will put the iridescent paint around the horn.
We did it here the first time.
Yeah.
I did that 19th century. We had a horn, we had a bowl
Yes,
of water.
right, yeah, for sure. So physical mediumship is becoming more, science is beginning to look more
this-
at that.
this-
The
this fella-
composition of this.
This fella Kai Mughal.
Moogie,
Moogie,
Mueggge, I think,
Yeah.
the Felix group.
Yeah. He has crystals and like
And he does apports.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
was-
come out of his eyes.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, he'll-
But
he'll-
you're in the
yeah.
dark, and look at Lee, he's
Yeah.
not buying it.
Yeah,
So
no,
I don't
it's-
blame
it's-
him,
no.
because I sat through it myself, and I was
Yeah.
prepared not to, I thought. I'm
Richard
crazy.
went and saw him, and I asked Richard about it, and he went, I bought it, man. He had me. He had
Well,
me.
you know
I
what
couldn't
got me?
figure it
I'm in
out.
the circle and he's doing his thing and what do you call it? And they warn you that you might feel pinches, you know, and pokes.
Nobody warned me about that.
Whatever. And I thought, oh, please. And you know, you start off in this high carelessness, everybody's singing and blah, blah,
Yeah.
this. So there's some sort of a group dynamic in the
exactly.
dorm too,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But I thought, oh, please, is it time to go? I gotta drive back, that's it. And all of a sudden, wham, I'm pinched. Then I'm, what do you call it? I'm pinched and poked
Okay.
and there wasn't anybody near me. And I thought, come on, Lisa, you're not that suggestible that you're, what
And
do you
this
call it?
was or was not in the pitch dark.
It was pretty dark.
Okay.
It wasn't pitch dark,
Yeah,
but they have two little.
But you were sure that
lights.
there was nobody.
There
like,
was,
poking you
wasn't
with a stick
anybody,
or-
and
Pull out
what
a
really
pool stick.
scared me. because-
You what?
No,
Maybe they pulled out a pool stick. And
Yeah,
yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
prod.
Yeah, no, and all the lights, these lights run around. It's sort of like, you know, when you have a cat and they have those
Laser
pet
pointers.
lights.
Laser
Yeah,
pointers.
laser point. So I wasn't totally buying that too, because I
Yeah.
figured, all right, who's sitting there with the
Yeah,
laser
right.
thing, whatever. But what really, they warn you about if you're gonna be dizzy or whatever to, you know, to say something. Well, all of a sudden I started getting dizzy. And I thought, oh, come on, Lisette, you know, and because Garrett always used to say, I mean, I'm highly intuitive. I'm not a psychic. I don't claim to have had experiences, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I thought, oh dear God, let's not go into trance. What does this mean? I mean, it was really frightening. So I started counting, trying to get my own, you know, so it was a strange, the whole thing was weird.
Yeah, no. this
I don't
stuff
know
is
what to
intriguing,
tell you.
and I
I
don't
mean,
totally
A lot of it I didn't
discount it either.
buy, but
all,
weird.
you know, all I ever come back to is just like, you know, there are ways to design experiments to try to investigate this stuff, and like it, you know.
But
it's-
Garrett was,
it's
as a
interesting.
psychic child or whatever, she was experiencing all sorts of phenomena, right? And in the beginning of her career, somebody that was from the College of Psychic Science was trying to help her deal with the gifts and
Yeah.
learn to be a 9 to 5 medium.
Yeah.
And at that time, they said, listen, you have to focus on one, the physical mediumship or you know, you can't, you know, pick your battles sort of deal.
Mhm.
So she tried very hard to ignore that. Later in life, towards the end of her life, and she was enormously curious about all this. Well, then she started thinking, well, why don't I go back to that? Because what was that, you know,
Mhm.
that moment in time in the 30s? So the whole thing is,
Yeah,
we're
it's-
all
it's
curious, I
fascinating.
guess,
Yeah,
aren't
exactly,
we?
yeah. I actually read about an experiment that was done with ectoplasm, where it was funny. I mean, they described it like the medium was sitting there and like the ectoplasm came out and there were all these scientists like waiting around her with like scissors.
oh,
Like a
no, I
baby.
know,
And they jumped in,
I
and
know.
they jumped in and like grabbed some and cut it off and like she screamed and then like went back down. her
Oh,
throat,
well,
whatever,
you know,
like-
but
And
because
then,
that's
so what was it? Like
yeah, like cheesecloth.
Oh,
But like,
okay.
but that's the thing. It's like,
that one was.
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
but
So
when I
it
would
comes down
tie,
to-
this mound of thing is
Yeah.
coming down
And then they
a
morph
hand
into
comes-
hands, right,
and,
right.
and then
right.
it waves at you.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, that was, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Really?
Richard went and he is very particular about mediums and because he's passionate about it and he doesn't want anybody giving him a bad name,
Yeah.
you know, and he doesn't want to be
Well,
rolled
he
into this.
doesn't want to be tarred with the same brush that.
Exactly,
Roz would
exactly.
be,
And I was like, Richard, have you ever heard about this guy Kai? And he's like, I went and saw him. And
I want to go see him. now.
yeah,
Does he
yeah,
still do
he's
shows?
German, I think.
Yeah, he's in Germany, but he does come over, but COVID stopped it.
Right.
Yeah,
But I'll
yeah.
let you know.
But he
Yeah,
said,
please.
Dan, I bought it. I bought it.
It was-
So
it-
that's the
it's
thing. I might have bought it too.
Yeah.
The best, like I said before, like the best people to bring to these things, so even the best people to help you design experiments are magicians.
Yeah.
Because like they know
Yes.
every way to
Yeah.
fake every possible thing, you know,
Mhm.
and there's a good example of it was I think like James Randi, who I don't, you know, he's
Randi,
kind of,
yeah.
Right.
he's like you said, there's kind of, you can be on either side of the spectrum and both
extremes,
sides aren't that
yeah,
good. Yeah, he's
whatever.
kind of on one side. But he described an experiment where there was this person that said they could make things move, whatever. And all these scientists came up to him. And they said, like, you got to test this guy. Like, he's amazing. He did this amazing
Uh-huh.
levitation thing. He's like, oh, what did he do? He's like, well, he put this matchbook on his hand
Yeah.
and then he would make it like levitate. And Randy's like, oh, like this. And he
Yeah.
took one part of his hand and did, yeah. So it's like scientists just don't think that way. People in general don't think that way, right?
Mhm.
Like magicians have been trained and learned to think in this way where they can figure this stuff out. Be like,
Mhm.
oh, this might be how they're doing it, right? And even magicians sometimes a magician comes up with a trick that other magicians can't figure out, right?
Yeah, and when you watch like a Penn and Teller show,
Yeah,
Penn and Teller did a Broadway show where they showed how they did all those tricks,
yeah,
and they were ingenious but super simple.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
You
the
know?
thing.
Well, it's all
because- yeah.
distracting you, right? It's
Distracting
all-
or just,
Necessarily,
you know,
or
like-
sometimes it's like a mechanism. Like
Like a
they'd be
magnet.
like, oh, you friggin', you put a little eye drop in your eye and then you set it off
Glycerin and it
somehow.
makes a drop.
Yeah,
blah,
and
blah,
sometimes
blah.
it's even more crazy. Like it'll be like, oh, well, if you like, swallow this tube 3 hours before the show and then you pull it out your butt, whatever. Like there's all kind of
Yeah,
mechanisms that they can do this really weird stuff that most people wouldn't think of. And they'd be like, what, you swallow a tube? Like, I thought this was like, they don't think of that when they think of magic, but there's all these like mechanisms that you can buy, fake fingers and stuff
Yeah.
to do the, the writing thing. Oh, I just thought, pictured you saying this thing. So there's so many intriguing tricks that the average human being would never think of in their,
I think
in
you're
a
right.
million years.
So you have to come to the library. You
Yeah.
gotta help me
Yeah,
save the
Speaking of the
library.
library,
Yes.
we just got like maybe 5 minutes left. Your library is where? Parapsychology Foundation.
It's always been in Manhattan, but it moved out when we, money, not, when you say you're nonprofit 501c, you're not kidding, we're nonprofit. So I had a house out in Greenport on the North Shore before Greenport has become somewhat a tourist destination now. And so there's over 12,000 books out there. There's international periodicals because Garrett did not want to have just English-speaking books because psychic phenomena, it appears cross-culturally all
Universal,
around the
right?
world, right? So we want to have the international journals. So the books, there's 600 items of an audiovisual collection. And it's a wonderful resource, but apparently I'm not psychic enough to know when the landlord is selling the building. So I have to find a home for the library because the foundation does not have the wherewithal. I mean, we were endowed in 71 years later, I'm surprised we're still kicking.
Yeah.
Or Lisette, find someone to buy the building and continue to house.
That's true.
the
That's true.
foundation.
Well, and that person-
Or
It's a good deal. Can't get a
No,
structure on the North
listen.
Fork for that price.
no, that's for sure. But if I can't, I've been looking at various university setups because, libraries, they need a lot of money and what do you call it? All this digitization that should be done. I mean, our rare books, I mean, I've got books in there like from 1500. It's criminal.
I just realized you might be able to reach out to Google. Like they had a project
They did have a project, the Google thing, yeah.
where they
Yeah, for
were
sure.
going out and digitizing books, especially like rare books and stuff. They might be.
But if I can find a home for the library where it's utilized, whether it's in an academic milieu or not, the work of the foundation, which is the grants, the scholarships, this international conferences, this clearinghouse of information, I need money to continue that as well. So basically, I'm going to start crying. No, but seriously, all donations tax deductible, and
Yeah.
please, I don't want to lose it on my watch because I'll have to sleep with a nightlight that Eileen Garrett and my mother, Eileen Coly, the second president. And I'm rather like the unsinkable Molly Brown because it's not my first rodeo. And I've also managed to get the fourth generation. My poor daughter got pulled in, Anastasia Damalis, the same way as I did. And now, hell's bells, I'm trying to take care, if I stick around long enough, maybe those two little girls, those two little
You
nuggets
ain't
might
going
get
anywhere.
pulled.
I'm not letting you go
Well, if
anywhere.
I do, I'll come back to the Merchant House and
Yes, please.
and you can wire me up to whatever. Yeah, for sure.
So we need a fabulously wealthy person, and out of the 7 people that were watching us, there might be one
You never can tell.
who can set up the Parapsychology Foundation
Please.
library somewhere
Please.
and set up the Merchant's House so they
And
don't
then I
have to
can give
worry
these
about
guys, I
this.
can give Dr.
Yeah.
Lee a grant
Oh my
to do
God,
his
yeah.
thing. We can have a thanatology conference again.
Mhm.
You and I are gonna go chase Mayor Adams and, cause he says that, what do you call it, the mayor's house is
Yeah,
haunted.
heard about that.
So
Yeah,
let's go
haunted,
break
so.
his chops because he's doesn't have enough going on in New York, right?
Exactly,
Needs
right.
us whatever. So no, but seriously, guys.
How many square feet approximately do you need for the library? Just so people
Oh,
know.
God, I think there's, what did I say? Linear feet for the library was like 4,000 linear.
Well, I guess it comes down to wall.
Linear feet, yeah,
right? Yeah,
because
exactly.
you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
put
yeah,
libraries in
exactly.
stacks.
You don't need
I
any
mean, I
space
have
to-
them,
yeah.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
Okay, so linear feet is what? Approximately?
1,461 linear
Right.
feet.
So
So there
anybody,
you go.
yeah.
Anyway.
that can
So
go around
we've
with
got,
tape
you know, an extra.
But listen, guys,
Apartment in New York City.
I've got 5 websites. I've got the YouTube channel. And while I'm still, well, in business or material is out there, please, questions, you know, you can do a lot of your own bibliotherapy. You don't have to sign up to lots of courses and this and that, because they're hard to find good ones. You know, unless you, the Rhine, Loyd is doing classes through the
Mhm.
Rhine Center. So you might, Loyd Auerbach, that Dan is, you know,
He's such a great guy. I'm gonna call him
Wonderful
this
guy.
weekend.
yeah, for sure. So I spoke to him last week. So anyway, we're here. Use this while I'm still breathing. Okay.
All right, well, hey, listen, we gotta. Is that the show's over?
Does that mean?
And, you know, and just throw it out there, before we started the show, Matilda and Lisette both heard a door slam.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear it. We were all sitting exactly where we are. And, but you guys heard a door slam, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then some of Lee's sensors were going off, but that might have been because of the thunderstorm that passed by, because it is a dark and stormy night tonight. But listen, we got to wrap up. We're over time, and I want to thank everybody for logging in and listening to us yammer on about this stuff. It's really cool, you guys. And want to thank Lisette, who's my close friend.
Sweetheart.
Love her.
Bad for COVID, but anyway,
And
I'm boosted.
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I get tested twice a week. And you know, come to the Merchant's House, take
Wow,
a
that's-
tour. It's an amazing, amazing jewel in New York City. It really is a time capsule.
And
to
down
come
with
to.
that hotel.
And
down with
yeah,
that
and we
hotel,
don't
forget
want
that.
that hotel to happen. And Matilda is a docent here.
Yes,
right?
Thursday
what?
afternoon.
Thursday
Oh,
afternoons.
cool.
Come ask for
Yeah.
Matilda. She's amazing.
Yes, of course,
That's
anytime,
okay.
Thursday afternoons.
All right.
In June, I'll be away, but every other
Okay.
Thursday afternoon.
Good.
That's awesome.
That's a deal.
That's awesome.
That's a
All right,
deal.
everybody. Well, thank you. And Pi, thank you. And yeah, we'll see you next month. I don't know what the show is going to be next month.
I
It's
think we're
going
talking
to
about
be on the work
the data
that,
we collected here.
that has been collected here.
Oh, okay. So
Oh,
we'll play some
good.
video,
Oh,
we'll play some
oh.
audio,
Yeah,
and all right,
yeah.
cool. That'll be great. Good to know. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right.
And
Bye, guys.
that's Dr. Lee saying so long. All right, bye. See how I can turn this off now.